Hey.
It's time for another episode of Eat Sleep Code, the official Telerik podcast. It's the news and developer what's hot in the news show. I don't do interviews right now because it's just so difficult to sync up with people. I used to see everyone in this thing we used to call in person. It was like in the before times.
Yep.
And it was so much easier to do like interview style shows back then.
You're losing your ability to converse with humans, is what you're saying?
In the before.
Yes, in the time before. Yes.
Yeah.
This is starting to turn into an episode of Ozarks.
Yeah. I can flag people down on the interwebs and interview them, of course, but it was so much different when you bumped into people,
Sure.
one-on-one, and you're like, hey, we should chat, and it was a good time to catch up with folks, and we'll get back to those, I hope, this year.
Excuse me. Cool.
So we've got some links this week. We've got some really good things to share.
Sure.
So I'm going to share my screen here. I'm going to start off with a little bit of like doom and gloom posts, and then we'll work into some more upbeat type of things, I think.
Okay.
That's a good way to put this. First of all, I saw this. This was really interesting to me because I can both relate and also I think it's the opposite of the way I feel, if that makes sense. I don't know if that, I can relate and also be completely opposed to it at the same time. But
That's called empathy.
yeah, I can empathize with this. That's a good word, John. I like
Yeah.
that one. I learned a thing today. What's this empathy?
There you go.
Tell me more. No.
That's right.
So this was a post called "I Don't Want to Front End Anymore," and this is somebody talking about the whole JavaScript fatigue stuff that we went through, and coming out the other side and it not getting any better. So
Right.
if you're not familiar with JavaScript fatigue in the audience, this is like the churn of new .NET frameworks that hit us when Angular, it was like Angular 2 at the time, started out, and then there was React and like a billion other frameworks out there that just kind of sprung up all at the same time, and it was kind of a fight for like who's the latest and greatest hotness. And so this post kind of dreads all that up again, and this person's talking about doing this type of work for a long time, and then all these new frameworks came out, and things
Sure.
just have gotten more complex and not any better. And I tend to agree with this to a large part. It's like we've added all these tools to the mix, TypeScript and Babel and all these Webpack compilers and NPM scripts, and there's like 50
Yep.
command line tools, and I'm not sure that we've gotten any more productive than when we just used like a single jQuery link at the top of the page,
Mm-hmm.
and things just worked.
Yep.
So I can relate there, but I found a framework that I really like called Blazor that lets me reuse my C# skills, and I don't have to deal with all this stuff anymore. So this person is talking.
For now.
Yeah. This person is talking from the standpoint of a JavaScript developer. I'm not saying all JavaScript developers have it bad and feel this way, but this one did, to the point where they actually quit their job and moved to doing like Node development on the back end. They're like,
Sure.
Get this front end stuff. I'm out. I'm done.
Sure.
So I just thought it was a really interesting read to see somebody just hit this onslaught of changing tools and stuff, and just kind of throw their hands up and go, you know what, I'm going to the back end.
Yep.
I'm going to go do back end development. So maybe this cools off and circle back another time. I think I was in the same boat until Blazor came along, where I was kind of questioning the front end, like, why are we making this so hard? Like, why does this have to be so difficult?
Mm.
We've added like so much ceremony to getting these things done that we're not getting production done anymore.
Yep.
So I don't feel like it's that bad anymore. People that I talk to that are doing React code and Angular, what is that up to now? Like 8, 9, 10, 11?
11.
11. You know, people that are doing Angular 11 and React, they seem to be pretty happy with it. I think some of this tooling has kind of gotten like merged into a kind of seamless process, and it's not so bad anymore. Even though this blog post is very recent, I think it's the nose is pulling up on that. So just thought it was really interesting, and I myself found if I'm learning something that's making me more productive or teaching me a newer, better way to do things, I think I'm good. I think where you get into this like place where you want to just eject and get out is when you're learning new things, but it's not making you any better at what you do.
Okay.
And, I don't know if you experienced any of that yourself, John. But
I have a few things to say about this. So first and foremost, this author writes in the first sentence, I started coding when I was 14, around 2007 or so. I'm like, come on, dude. Like, you have no idea what we've had to put up with. Like, back in the late 90s, it was even worse. So we're getting to a better place.
Here's that
you're able to.
You're talking about, John.
Yeah, this isn't empathy. You don't come to me for empathy. Sorry, you don't come to me for sympathy. I'll be empathetic, but yeah. So 2007, what was happening? Let's see. I think this was pre crash of the mortgage crisis. This was, I think, .NET and Java were duking it out. PHP was a relatively minor sort of usage, relatively speaking to now. Let's see, there was CSS3 was the new hotness. I think HTML5, HTTP2 was coming on board. HTML was a living spec by this point. So yeah, there was a lot of things going on. So I think that relatively speaking, this person, I can understand the frustration that this person is feeling. So absolutely, the web space is hard. I think that unfortunately it's one of those things where this is the reality of the space itself. This hasn't changed. If anything, it's continued, and it will continue to do so throughout the whole web sphere. So I think that the thing that people need to focus on relative to this is that full stack seems to be the way going forward rather than just front end. I think that
interesting.
I don't think that front end is really that much of a need anymore. So I think that full stack is going to be the way that. No, just hear me out. Getting bits on the screen isn't hard, right? You can do it. I think what people struggle with is trying to do it in a way that I guess is the new hotness. I would say, as long as people get look at this guy's blog. Look how simple it is, right? This person has achieved what they set out to achieve, which is to put text on a screen. I think where people get kind of hung up is where they're trying to adopt certain technologies and approaches for those sakes, rather than just focusing on getting the job done. I think a lot of the work, the hard problems, are in the back end. I don't think the front end really poses that much of a challenge, to be honest. And it really is. I think we're guilty of over complexifying, if there's such a word, the front end to a certain extent. Now, this person is probably not a native English speaker. This person is probably focused on, just getting the job done for their blog. But when it comes to the front end, I think part of it is also the web itself is, I don't know, it's one of those things where I think that people, can I get the blinking? Can I get the image over here? Can I get this to flow? I think people are too focused on making it look nice rather than getting the job done. So I don't know. I think we're guilty of our own sort of creativity sometimes. So that's kind of my summary, my hodgepodge of thoughts on this.
So I don't want to pick fun at somebody's blog because mine's not much better. I just started trying to revive it today. But this is like, there's 2 posts here. And one is like, here's how I got my site working in Python static site generator. And the second one, not even a week later, is like, I quit. No, that's fun. But anyway, it was a good insight into people's thoughts on the whole front end coding situation. But the full stack thing is interesting. I didn't expect to hear that from you.
Why?
You and I, we're both full stack guys, but there's a whole ecosystem of people out there that don't even believe that we're real. Do you know that? Like we're as phony as I don't know, contrails. Like we're not a real thing, John.
All right.
We're just a mystery that's been cooked up by the interwebs. Like seriously, there's people that think like that it's not a possibility for you to learn all of the stacks and be good at all of the stacks. So it's just fun to hear that get thrown out there again.
I think you can cover 80% of what you need. Mm-hmm. You know, I think I'm not doing multi-way millions of lines of or millions of transactions per second type problems. You know, all the time. So I don't know. I think you know, I can partition a SQL table and I can, you know, work out how to distribute a load across a variety of servers, and I know how to do a front end, and you know, it's
yeah.
I don't know.
You could walk into pretty much any organization and fill an open spot on pretty much any spot, you know, on the stack per se. Like if they're like,
yeah, I'm not trying to break my arm by patting myself on the back too much here, but it's like, come on, guys, like, you know,
I think
this guy's been doing it.
Problem-solving ability that just translates across all of these things. Like, I was doing on Monday last week CSS grid stuff, which we'll get into here in a minute, and finished out the week on Friday by doing VR game engine stuff. You know, it's all problem solving. It has very similar methodologies to like figuring out where the problem needs to be solved and how to shuffle the bits and get stuff on the screen or in the environment, whatever that thing may be. But point here was it's kind of rough to see like a situation like this, because I remember being like in this era, maybe just like 5 years ago, where like there was just so much being thrown out there at once, and it felt like it was just like you weren't getting to the shipping point any faster. Like nothing was getting better, but we were learning all of these things that we had to perform to get the same job done. And I think that's finally like settled out, and you know, the bits that didn't work kind of sifted to the bottom, and we've moved on, and we're in a better place.
I get at the risk of being presumptuous, I get a sniff of this person chasing his or her own tail. You know, they're saying we have to use this, we have to use no one says you have to do anything, right? So I would say stick to what you know, become good at it, continue. Don't worry about what is being said out there. Oh, you're an idiot for using this or that. No, if it gets the job done, you did your job.
Yeah, we had somebody we were talking to the other day that said they tried they tried React, and they finished the process of building an app, and they're like, the next app we do is going to be in web forms. Like we're going back. Web forms is more productive. We're going back to it.
Why not?
And
who cares?
It works. You know what? Your users don't give a crap. Like
no,
they just care what's on the screen. So anyway, I'm going to circle back one more time here. I was kind of poking a little bit of fun at that person's blog, like history, and I'm not doing that out of any type of meanness. It's out of my own experience. If you look at my blog, which you'll see 2019, one post, 2020, one post, 2021. I'm up to 2 posts. I've beaten year over year now.
You have a 100% increase.
Yes. I am now twice as productive as I was last year on my own blog. I'm proud of myself. So today I released a blog post. It is a good segue from this topic because, again, I found myself in this situation where I was just like miserable with some of the stuff going on. And finally, we've hit this point, I believe, where things have gotten better. And one of the things that's gotten better is doing layouts in HTML.
Okay.
So I kind of put learning HTML grids or CSS grids on the back burner for quite some time. And I got into Flexbox. I thought that was pretty handy. So I took the last week to learn about CSS grids. And I rebuilt my blog, which this isn't the current production version of what I'm talking about yet. But it will soon be replaced with CSS grids versus, I think this is a Bootstrap holdover here, which there's, again, nothing wrong with Bootstrap. Yeah, this is Bootstrap still.
Yeah, you can tell. The call and row and all that stuff is definitely Bootstrap.
Yeah. What I did find as a benefit of CSS Grid over Bootstrap was there was just a whole lot less CSS code. So when you look at it from a dependency perspective, there's a lot of boilerplate that comes. I mean, that Bootstrap file is gigantic, comparatively speaking, to the new version that I'm rolling out currently. And I wrote in probably 2 days' time the entire site layout and everything in CSS Grid, whereas I don't need that whole Bootstrap thing anymore. And
I thought you said no one cares about this stuff, Ed. Come on.
But the thing is, it got me to a better place. So I didn't learn something new for the sake of just producing the same thing. I did so to produce the same thing with much less work and much less payload. So the size of the page came down because I don't have that whole Bootstrap thing anymore. Let's see if we've got a clean source we can look at here, but don't see it off the top of my head. But Bootstrap in general, and this is a pared down version of it. I don't have the whole framework in here. It's still pretty darn big. And a lot of that comes from the fact that Bootstrap, at the time, there was no CSS grid, and they were trying to make this stuff palatable for front-end developers, and they had to write basically the functionality that is now baked into the into the browser.
Browser is kind of an OS.
Yeah. So this functionality is baked in now, so you don't have to rely on Bootstrap to, be downloaded on every person's machine to do this. It's part of the browser. So I wrote this blog post about Blazor Layout Components, because people coming over to Blazor are coming from other .NET ecosystems that use XAML. And I've heard this question a lot as of recent, where folks are like, well, we've got input components and these components, and Telerik has components, but there's no layout components for Blazor. Why? Well, it's because they're built in. Just like I said, the grid is there, and your CSS grid, and I do comparisons here 1-to-1 as close as possible to what a grid in XAML looks like versus what a grid in CSS and HTML looks like. And, that helps, I think, people transition from one to the other. I kind of act as a little bit of an intermediate here and translate for folks, because I know the HTML enough, and I've dabbled with enough XML that I can kind of do a little bit of translation for folks, similar to how you do with like JavaScript and C# for people that are coming from one direction or another. So talk about CSS grid, give some, working examples, talk about Flexbox here. And then finally down at the bottom, this matches up example for example with the docs.microsoft.com on the XAML docs. And we basically have this final example that shows how to use both the grid and the Flexbox together to create a layout. And then there's links in here to learn more about each of these technologies, and an example where this translation came from, where you can see I've got, pretty much line by line that same example from XAML. So that's out there. I had just published that a couple hours ago, and I think that'll be a good bridge for a lot of folks.
Cool.
All right, John. Let's talk about some malware. We're going back to the dark side today. M1, Apple says that viruses don't happen to them. That was the olden days.
I don't think they've ever said that. I think that's a meme.
Apple
that
users have repeated this meme.
Sure. Okay. I think it's because they're a small target, relatively speaking. Right? They're still around 10% of the overall industry, but
Yeah.
You know, it depends on who you're going after and why.
So the M1's the new system on a chip, the holy grail of Apple computing. What's going on here? We've got some problems in paradise.
Well, it looks like there's obviously going to be exploits written for any type of system. The M1 architecture is different. They have Rosetta, which is sort of a bridge for getting their old binaries running on these new systems. But this looks to be like a native M1 ARM-based exploit. I don't know what the exploit is. I don't know how it leverages M1, if at all. To be honest, I haven't really looked into this too much, but this is going to be a natural sort of... I think this is like, you've made it as a chip architecture if someone writes an exploit for you.
There you go.
Maybe you could look at it that way. I don't know. So, yeah,
cool.
these things are sometimes difficult to detect as well. So I sympathize with the malware and antivirus people. They've got a tough problem on their hands sometimes. So they've got to be constantly aware of what people are doing.
Yeah, even software and firmware included.
Sure.
These things always have that vicious cycle of getting the hacks are out, and then you gotta put the antivirus in place before it gets
Sure.
into too many hands.
Yep.
It's always a ongoing race. Unfortunately, these things tend to slow down our processors to some extent. Usually over time that gets weeded out, but it's not a good thing for consumers.
Well, I think the invention of the App Store and getting sort of developer certificates involved and things of that nature has helped a great deal.
Yeah. There's some that have happened on the device itself though that haven't.
Yeah.
You can only patch them through software, and they're not performant friendly.
Yeah, the reality is you're going to get a lot. I think I suspect, but if I were looking at just at a target by target basis, I think as an attacker, I would suspect that you could get a lot more accomplished through social engineering means rather than technical exploits. So, the benefit of a technical exploit is that if especially a 0-day, it's very hard to detect, and you have potentially rampant effects. But social engineering is still, I think, probably the number one way that most people find their way into systems. So,
I'd have to agree. I remember a little old man story here. I remember back in the day, I actually worked in hardware, and my job was to cut the tops off these things and look inside to see if there was problems. And it was really cool because under a really high-powered microscope, you could always find little drawings and signatures and doodads that people put in these things. I've seen photos of them, but to see it in person is even cooler because you're like scanning across like a chip, and then all of a sudden you see like a little drawing of an alien or something. It's pretty neat stuff. Brings back the memories. This is a good blog post that I read. I'm trying to learn more about source generators.
Okay. Yeah, it's a new feature that was added to .NET 5.
Absolutely. And it's still new, and I still am very confused by how to write them. But this was an interesting blog post. So in Blazor, there are attributes that you put on a page to make it routable.
Yes.
And this is a source generator that will scan through the app and generate routing components. So you could put them in you could put them in various places, but you can auto-generate basically your menus based on your routes using the source generator.
This is very common. We've been doing this since the 90s. I mean, I remember doing this, in the 90s. So, yeah.
So we're going to party like it's 1999. And
pretty much, yeah.
Yeah, this gives you an idea of how the source generators are written and a pretty cool use case for them. I thought it was a good post, and shared that one on social media a few times already because
nice.
It's kind of an ongoing post too. There's kind of a series of them where he keeps adding complexity to it.
Yeah. The concern with source generators, I think, in this example is the fact that they're dynamic in nature. So you need to be a little careful, I think. You don't want to inject something that is inadvertently. I would use feature flags as an alternative, but that's me. So
it's it's time for, John, your favorite part of the show, and that is
use. Yes,
of
course.
Can it play Doom, John?
Yeah, apparently cardboard can.
Now
so here we go.
We've gone completely to a non-technical platform, and Doom can play cardboard. So I don't know if you've seen this on
Sorry,
social
cardboard
media.
can play Doom, is what you're saying.
Yeah. So I don't know if you've seen this on social media, but this is actually
games made of cardboard. Perfect.
This is actually pretty fun. So this is a YouTube person, and what they do is they make like these little
sprites,
diorama silhouette things.
Sure. Yeah.
Of video games and whatnot, and then they film it, and the result is actually pretty entertaining.
So they're using sort of that sort of stop photography. Oh, I see what they're doing here. Yeah, hilarious.
So the guy's like kind of pretending to play Doom on his computer, and then on his screen is like the zoomed in.
Yeah.
And it's pretty cool. What I thought was neat though is the 3D effects that, he's built these stages basically in 3 dimensions, and then he's running the camera through them.
He's doing grade 7 artwork, which is you get that vanishing point thing, and it creates the zoom effect for you. So
yeah, I just thought this was clever and hilarious. Right. And he's got like the nostalgia of like actually playing the game down.
He's even got a PS2 keyboard. Look at that thing. God, is it got the turbo button there? Jeez. Yuck.
I mean, you could tell this is somebody that actually has played the game and
sure
has like a real enjoyment for the game, because he's got like the full experience of playing that first level down pat.
Yeah.
And the camera work is just too much fun. Like, I thought this was so cool. I love geeky stuff like this. I mean, how can you go wrong?
This is definitely geeky for sure.
Yeah. So anyway, now we've determined that cardboard can play Doom.
All right.
I know you love that animation, John.
Sure.
I'll have to make sure I play it one more time before we're out today. This is a post that you shared with us, things you should do now.
Yeah, so obviously when designing and architecting software, there's a few choices you make up front that you feel are meaningless, but actually over time can have huge costs associated with them. And so the folks over at Fabricator wrote this article that kind of gives you a summary of some of the things that you can do. Obviously, this is not an exhaustive list, but they mention a few things, and I'll just highlight a few of them. So IDs at a gigantic number. So commonly people will say, hey, we'll start with 0 and then go 1, 2, 3. And oftentimes you'll either exhaust your list of ID values. So you're better off choosing something like a GUID or something huge that can give you a lot of options. Mm-hmm. Store only in UTF-8. This one's pretty self-explanatory. You should be storing your strings and values like that in Unicode. It's just gives you a lot more flexibility, and you certainly don't want to go back in time and have to look at converting everything over. Never design a blacklist-based security system. You should do whitelist if you can, but blacklists is basically you're going to play catch-up the whole time. So as soon as you mark one entry as denied, then another one pops up. You have to mark that one as denied, and then another one, and this goes for anything basically. So any type of list-based system, it should be whitelist. Because it basically says anything on this list is valid, everything else is denied. And then this one I like the most, the last one, fail very loudly when SQL syntax errors occur in production. This should never happen. But when it does, you should be yelling from the rooftops. Basically because anytime you have a potential exploit available on your database system, you open yourself up to injection attacks. And so basically you should be loud. There are certain errors that are kind of like, whatever, we'll get to it when we get to it. But something like this where you start at the front, you get all the way down the bottom, and something happens down there that shouldn't, that should be loud and clear. You should be broadcasting that across the entire organization. Anyone who's monitoring that should know that there's an error at the database level, because that is potentially dangerous.
Yeah, and this is something when you say screaming from the rooftops, you mean internally. You never share that with your end user. Like, do not write your exceptions to the screen on the client. Please.
Yeah, I mean, it is a very fast way of determining if you have errors.
Well, it's a quick way to make sure you have security problems too. Sure.
I would say we're at a space now where there's any number of great monitoring solutions out there. Raygun, for example. These folks do a great job of capturing that sort of stuff, and you should be using that.
The blacklist versus whitelist. This is something that you have to be very careful of too. Like, I've had 2 companies that I've worked with now that they start on the firewall with these approved lists, and they're like, all right,
wildcard
they
wipe
everything out. So one day we're sitting there at work. This was at my old job, and we're like companywebsite.com blocked.
Sure. Yeah.
I'm like, wait a minute. We just blocked our own website? Is this for real? And there was like an entire day that went by where we all had to go on like our personal devices to access the company's customer-facing website.
Hey, it happens.
We had blocked it internally.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know we've done this too and within Progress at some point. It wasn't like one of our main
everyone's
sites.
done this. Everyone's done this.
That's true. I think it was like one of our dojos or something we just blocked.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, that's fun.
It happens. Yeah. It's not intentional. It's just people make mistakes. That it happens. So
don't go with the deny list, but be a little more
approve limited, and then deny everything else. So.
There you go. Mm-hmm. And the start with GUIDs thing here. This from personal experience. Just working on a demo app. I built a demo app that started with SQL, and then I was like, I'm going to try Cosmos DB because this is a demo app and I want to try something new. Yep. And when I switched from SQL to Cosmos, this bit me hard. So SQL is notorious for using IDs as a primary key. And Cosmos is like, I don't know what to do with this integer. You're using a GUID, buddy. So all of the queries had to be tweaked. The POCO objects had to be tweaked. So there was a lot of adjustments that had to be made. And it would have been...
I was going to ask you, is this isolated database as well? What happens when you decide to scale out and you're having to do ID generation across multiple databases? That's when it can get really gnarly.
Yeah, and this would have been an absolute cluster if it was on a production app. I couldn't imagine trying to convert from a relational database to a document database. Hopefully there's tools for that. Manually,
it's called copy paste.
That would have been a disaster of a project, but it does live on. It is still something I'm doing talks on. So the demo worked out in the end. This NASA thing happened this weekend.
Yeah, so they 6-month journey over to Mars, not a big deal, So no, they sent over another rover. So Perseverance is the second rover or actually not the second technically, but the second similar design-based rover, and they captured a lot of video. Actually, this was the first time, rather than the previous time we saw it in still images, now we've got video on this rover, and so this is showing the sort of not real time when it was recorded, landing of Perseverance on Mars, which happened yesterday. So this is kind of cool.
I was watching this weekend, and I was like, man, they really got some good footage this time. Sure. And it turns out it was the animation has gotten really, really good.
Oh, yeah.
So I was watching like the animation of how this should have looked.
Look at the detail. I mean, like, who's filming this? I mean, this is crazy.
That's what tipped me off. I was like, who's filming this? Because, was like, who's got an HD camera on the surface of Mars?
we sent 2 rockets there. Great, that's awesome. No, so this is a really, really nice way of viewing the landing, which is fantastic. And so they reached the surface, which was fantastic. Looks like everything's nominal, which is great. And now we start exploring and seeing what's what.
This is pretty solid footage too. Not quite as high def as what I had seen.
Yeah, there's actually some high diff rigs on there that they've got with this rover, which is great. They also actually recorded the first sound ever from Mars as well, so they played that back during the briefing as well. So they did a wind gust recording, and they're like, yeah, it was a 5 mile per hour wind gust that went by the microphone. So it was the first ever audio recording of Mars.
Very
as well.
cool.
Yeah.
I don't know if you had a chance a couple of years ago at Build to do the HoloLens Mars exhibit, but that was pretty cool for even for somebody that doesn't like their face hacked. It was a pretty cool exhibit to be able to actually like walk on the surface of Mars and look at stuff.
Sure. Yep.
Thought that was cool.
Yeah.
OAS. What do we?
Yeah, Open API.
Open API. Okay.
This is a big deal. Anyone's building APIs, this is common what you guys will see. For folks who are on the .NET side, and actually other stacks, to be fair, a lot of people refer to this as Swagger. Swagger is the name. Swagger Bear is the name of the company that maintains Swagger, the product. But Open API is the specification that basically allows you to describe your endpoints in a rich and meaningful way. And so version 3.1 shipped just last week, and one of the biggest changes that they made in the latest revision is they're now adopting JSON schema as the sort of type definition language for describing those types within the API spec itself. So the request response messages, the structured types that you see in APIs now are listed. Another big change they made is adding webhooks, the ability to describe webhooks in your API specification, which is fantastic. So that wasn't there before. And so, if you're doing anything with APIs today and you're wanting to utilize a specification document to describe them, Open API is the way to do that. 3.1 is now available. And the best part is that there's some really good code generation tools out there for Open API documents. So you can actually code gen up clients for over 55 different languages and environments based on that specification. So definitely check it out.
Yeah, and these things are built into .NET now, so you don't have to actually write the specs yourself. So I've got an app that I wrote, and pretty much I think it's enabled by default now. And you just go into your URL and type in Swagger at the end of the URL, and then there is all of the APIs that are available on your app, and you can fiddle with these right from the console.
Yeah, sorry, I said Swagger Bear. I meant Smart Bear. Sorry.
Oh,
Swagger. Yeah, sorry. That's the company that maintains Swagger. And there was some confusion about this. People still still refer to the specification as Swagger. It's actually Open API, but this is the auto-generated UI that's created from that, and this is definitely a good thing. People of the old school might think of this as WSDL. It's sort of similar, but it's based on a JSON schema now, and it's a JSON declaration of the API, and it gets all these great tooling. And then there's a wonderful code generator that it's at openapigenerator.tech or something like that, and it can generate clients and models for all the stuff that you're using here. So if you're doing anything with APIs, this is pretty much the de facto way of doing it.
And it supports authorization and everything too, so you can paste in your bearer token and access all of these authorized APIs behind the scenes. It's really nice because I didn't have to write any of this code. Like it all just worked out of the box. And I have to go back to a comment in chat, by the way. This was during our NASA talk. Alexander says, great, new time zones to support.
Yep. Perfect. Just wonderful. Great. Can't wait.
Love it. All right. This is a great announcement. So announcing .NET 6 Preview 1. John, what's your favorite parts of this?
I don't have one yet. I think that it's one of those things where I'm just kind of like, look, it's out there. I don't know if it's time yet to look at this stuff yet, but I mean,
all right.
I just
Mr.
put it out there.
Politics.
Yeah. Come on. I just put it out there because I thought, hey, just an FYI, this stuff's coming. It's coming fast. I think this forward momentum is a good thing. We got to lean forward into adding new capabilities. Certainly, the issues list for .NET 5 is long, and so people are like, listen, there was stuff that wasn't put into .NET 5 that we were hoping would be in there. .NET 5 is just as significant as .NET 3 was. .NET 6 I think will be an iterative improvement. I think of .NET 6 based on the things that are in this blog post as .NET 5.1 or 5.5, but I'm sure the folks at Microsoft Richard especially will probably kick me in the butt for saying that, but it doesn't look like anything too revolutionary here. There's some new types and new namespaces, etc. But
You hurt my heart, John.
What's that?
You're missing the big one, man.
What's
Not
that?
revolutionary enough for you. .NET multi-platform app UI. If we scroll down here, Blazor desktop apps, and this is something that is game-changing right here.
Really?
This is what you're looking at is a Blazor application running on a native desktop shell in Mac.
That sounds like Electron to me. That's like what's
Electron
the
with
phrase?
extra steps.
With extra steps, the old Rick and Morty reference. That
So
sounds
it's
like Electron
actually-
with extra steps.
It's not an Electron shell. It is a native.
No, but you know what I mean. It's a shell of some kind hosting
Yeah.
a view form or something like that.
So with Electron, those have kind of a stigma of being slow and bloated.
Sure.
The nice thing about this is the opposite of that. It is a real .NET runtime. So it is the actual .NET 6 runtime on the Mac desktop with a Blazor application running inside of it. And unlike an Electron app, let's scroll down to the next one. This is native WPF UI code running side by side with Blazor web UI code.
Yeah, dude, we saw this with WPF and WinForms. What do you want?
And they can communicate with each other within the same
Great.
application context.
What's old is new. Come on.
Yeah.
This doesn't interest me.
I don't
I
remember
expect
that
this.
stuff ever running cross-platform the way you're remembering it fondly. These are new things that are happening.
All right.
This is totally not Java all over again. This is not the Java runtime. It's not.
Okay.
Say it with me, John.
No, I won't. But anyways.
No, the problem with Java was actually the opposite. Is it tried to use like this unified like UI that nobody used on any OS ever, and it was terrible. And every time you opened an app in it, it looked like garbage, and you thought somebody had put spyware on your machine.
I don't know. I did
So-
Swing back in the early 2000s. I thought that was pretty good.
Swing.
Yeah.
I've never heard of it.
It's a UI framework that was espoused on the Java side back in the early 2000s. So, anyways.
Yeah. So there's a lot of folks coming from the Silverlight generation that want to take their apps and port those to something new that can run everywhere but run on the desktop in a desktop environment. And I think one of these two application models may be that holy grail for them. So I see this as very important for that type of developer. And
you could verbally you could do a word replace on what you just said. I think this X is the holy grail of Y. I've heard those statements for years. I'm like, oh, this is going to change everything. Like, no, it very won't. We're going to have new problems.
It all.
Yeah, I know.
I'm doing the
that's
Apple
fine.
spiel here. It's revolutionary.
No,
It's
you
revolutionary.
reimagined. It's not revolutionary. You
No, it's
reimagined.
reimagined.
all right?
We just
That's right.
reimagined the desktop with native UWP UI
I know.
UI being rendered.
Now watch me imagine dragging your desktop icon to the trash.
And this is all well and good until somebody pulls up the accessibility and hits the zoom button.
Sure,
and only
sure.
half
All
the
that
app,
stuff. Yeah,
only
yeah.
half the app resizes text and all the graphics go haywire.
I know.
But it'll be
always the case.
fine. It'll be fine. This is just the
Sure.
first generation, and it'll get better. And speaking of, so we hit something last week that you had a good time making fun of. This Facebook Horizons thing.
Uh-huh.
I spent a good part of my weekend on this.
Good.
Tooling
Great.
around. I thought this was phenomenal. It was
Okay.
very, very cool. You're going to see me talk about this more.
Good.
and,
Just what we want.
The development environment that they built into this platform it's been done before. It's not anything that's like super revolutionary or anything
Sure.
by any means. But the way they've packaged it up, it's pretty well polished, and it's got that instant like gratification type of feel to it, where a lot of these other tools haven't quite gotten that experience down. So what's nice about this is you're in your VR headset, and at the flick of a button, you're inside of the environment that you've created and the game you're
Yes.
working on. And then at the flick of a button again, you're kind of in this God mode where you can like shrink the world down to like an itty bitty, tiny, like playhouse size version
Sure.
of what it is.
Sounds like VB6 to me, but there you go.
VB6.
You could do it with the WYSIWYG editor as well. You know, I mean, like
In
I don't know.
VB6, you could do VR. That's
Let
kind
me
of-
guess. These guys have a grid layout as well. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, CSS Grid works here.
Perfect. Yeah.
HTML tables. No.
Look, I make fun. I make fun just because it's funny. I'm just joking around, folks.
Oh,
I'm
I know,
not
of
dead.
course.
I'm not serious about this. Come on.
But the part that I thought was nice is for somebody that's done game development before. When I was doing game dev, I built lots of levels for the Half-Life engine.
Yep.
And building a level, I built levels for Doom, Half-Life, and Duke Nukem. With each iteration of those things, there was like a time investment, not on like just learning the tool, but building the damn file took an eternity.
Sure.
An eternity. Oh my gosh. So you would put like, say you have a room, you place a chair in that room, you hit compile, you walk away for a good 20 minutes before that thing is ready to play.
Yep.
And if you move that thing off by a pixel because you just goofed it up, you got another 20 minutes to wait before you go back and examine that room again.
Sure.
I mean, it was such a vicious cycle, and you would have to get really good at just building things right the first time. And it was just a tough thing to swallow. And the bigger the level got, the more it had to render. So the longer it took, you would get to the point where it was like 2 hours just to make a change. And this thing is like instant. You press a button, you're in the world, you're playing it, you press another button, and it's all kind of like the state is kind of always in motion, so you can kind of debug really quickly and stuff. It's kind of hit a pretty sweet spot, I think. And
Actually,
I
that's
want
an
to play
interesting
with this some
question,
more.
Ed. I want to ask you, when things crash, or if they do, what happens?
So I haven't really witnessed anything crash per se. If you're writing
Okay.
code in here, it's kind of like writing .NET code. It just doesn't work. Like it'll throw an error on the console, but
So you get a pop-up
Everything-
window. Okay.
yeah. There's a debug window that has errors that are shown, but if something crashes, it crashes.
You know,
constantly.
I was thinking, like, it would be kind of cool if the whole world, like, turned into hell. You know, like, things are on fire. And, like, you're in deep, like, things have crashed, you know? Like, trees
Yeah.
are melting.
Yeah. So for example, if there's a reference that's wrong or something, it'll just say
Sure.
like something was undefined.
Invalid
and,
ID.
like,
Yeah, invalid
whatever,
ID.
Whatever object you expected to move wherever just sits where it was and doesn't.
Yeah,
move.
this is a thin 3D veneer over the virtual machine upon which you're running.
Yeah. And it's very much, what is that code thing called again? We talked about it before.
Scratch.
Scratch. Dang, I always forget the name of that. Scratch.
It's okay.
It is very much Scratch.
Yes.
And it's done well. What I thought was really nice, though, is the properties and everything are exposed pretty intelligently here. So within just a second of opening this thing up, I mean, you can draw a ball on the screen and then press a button on the ball and say, I want this thing to be grabbable by the user, and I want it to obey physics, and I want it to be, and you have like a list of properties that you can apply to it. And it's like, all right, I want it to bounce like a basketball. And then now you have a basketball. And it's just that quick. Like, you just go in and click a couple buttons.
Sure.
You're in the game, you're bouncing a basketball around.
Yeah, look, I get it. I mean, it's cool, but the thing is, that's a very tightly constrained environment upon which you're building stuff. And so, if you define the parameters of a world where it's like you're listing maybe a couple of hundred permutations, it's not hard. You should have a tight feedback loop on that. The problem is you get these environments where anything's possible, and then that's when things screw up.
Yeah. So the examples that are coming up in this app are pretty impressive. Not graphics wise. I think the graphics part will come as people get more experienced with the level editor part of it. But the game ideas are actually pretty decent. I mean, there's first person shooters coming out of this, and sports games and puzzle games, and all of those things are capable by this little. I say little, but it's probably a pretty detailed engine. The part that you can access seems very trivial, but you can do a lot with it.
So Ed, out of spite, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go meta, and I'm going to build a Horizon clone for Horizon. So you'll build a game that helps you build a Horizon game.
Yeah, there was. Was it Minecraft?
It's turtles all the way down.
Yeah. Somebody did Conway Game of Life in this already.
Okay.
Trying to think if it was Minecraft that had they had Doom in Minecraft. That's what it was.
Yeah, Minecraft. Some of the engineers in Minecraft have been really interesting because they have this thing called Redstone where it's activated. So you have eventing built into the game, and so people were building logic circuits and stuff using blocks and stuff. So
this has a full language that you can write through Scratch, and there are event triggers and all of that built in.
Yep.
And you can attach scripts to objects, and right now I'm working on a skee-ball game that getting the prototype of how the game mechanics work and getting a score on a scoreboard only took a couple hours to figure out all of that. The rest of it's going to be, the game design part, making it look good and putting a narrative together that makes it fun to play. But the game mechanics part was easy. It was surprisingly easy to take a ball, give it the physical properties. Physics is just being able to turn physics on at a whim is just amazing to me, because we didn't have that in Doom or in Half-Life. It was physics weren't a thing yet. So to be able to click a button and say, this thing has physics, it bounces like a ball, and then get another object that say, when it collides with this, make a score go up on the scoreboard. And it's whoa, I just figured that out in no time flat. It's intuitive. So I'm going to play with this some more, and I might live stream some of it or something sometime.
Great. I can wait to hear about it.
One day, John, you will be in the Matrix with the rest of us.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. I can't wait to see what flow looks like. When you get into you get really into your coding, and you could put a still time photography on you, and you're just moving, your fingers are like this the whole time. I'd love to see what flow looks like in Horizon. So
what's that Black Mirror episode where the one family member refuses to join the virtual world that everybody else is in?
Sounds familiar.
You're gonna be that guy.
Okay. I'm okay with that.
Have you seen Black Mirror?
I've heard of it, yeah.
Oh, dude, you gotta watch Black Mirror. Totally fun show to watch. It's like the modern day Twilight Zone. But there was an episode where everybody's got an implant that brings them into Second Life, for lack of a better term. And at one point, this guy's like refusing tooth and nail while the rest of his family's in there, and his wife's moved on. She's got like a virtual husband now. It's like,
Yeah. It's like when you travel, people are like, you should totally. Oh, where are you going? Oh, you're going to. You should totally do the thing. I'm like, I don't. No, I don't. I'm an adult. You don't have to. I don't have to do anything. I can sit here in my hotel room if I want. It's like you totally have to do the Horizon 3D. And I'm like, no, I don't. I don't have to do anything. I can code away here. I can do this. I'm fine.
All right, John. Well, I feel unfortunate for Rick because he's just showed up as we are exiting the show. But that's all we've got for the show this week. It was a good share, though, I think. We had some good topics there.
We're on the surface of Mars, and we'll be, doing, I don't know, maybe we'll be using Horizon to explore it.
Hey, I'll be on the surface of Mars with my Oculus, so you can just pretend you know what it looks like, and I'll be there.
All right.
So the rest of the week, we have some shows coming up here. We've got a UI show on Friday with Alyssa. I've got a Blazor Power Hour. I think I'm going to cover those CSS grid things I talked about on my Blazor Power Hour this week. So that should be interesting for Blazor folks. TJ is on talking about React on Wednesday. Make sure you tune in for that. So we got lots of good stuff coming up this week, John.
Awesome.
Any last words?
Nope. Hope everyone's doing well. No. Just hope everyone's doing well. Stay safe, everyone. Have a great week.
All right. Everybody take care, and we'll see you next week.